My name is Nora. I am I guess I was born into geology. My parents are both biologists, and I went running the other direction into art and found my way back into biology, geology through gemstones. But I went to Kent State and the Academy of Art in San Francisco and got my degree in metals and also journalism. So I enjoy all aspects of it. I have been doing paranormal research since 2002 professionally. Through Kent State, I was part of an all-girls team, and then after graduation, we kind of went our own ways, and I've since just more or less just helped families that have energy issues in their homes and different things, working with either historical research, because I do a lot of historical research in genealogy and also artifact research in homes, but also, working with gemstones. So I guess what I'm going to talk about today is kind of a brief overview of different gemstones that we use in the paranormal for protection purposes, and then also show you different protection grids that we've used for different projects. Gemstones, a lot of people think, oh, you have to always put them in your pouch or in your rock. You can also wear them. Some of the earliest people wearing them was Native Americans actually drilled them into their teeth. When you go through the tombs, you can find them there, and also just in general, they were wearing them. Okay, selecting a gemstone. I know I was working with you downstairs. A lot of times, your gemstone picks you, kind of calls out to you. You can't always just collect them. A lot of times, people gravitate towards the blue stones. A lot of those are calming. The orange stones are creativity, like a carnelian. Like my office is actually painted bright orange like that can. This is what my office looks like. I work from home, and that helps me stay creative all day long. Cleansing gemstones, something I didn't mention to you when we were downstairs testing the pendulums. You might want to cleanse them. If you find one that is even remotely close to what you like, cleansing the gemstone, putting it out in the moonlight, putting it in salt, burying it. There's different ways that I actually have some slides that you'll see to actually cleanse the gemstone. Right here. Sorry, last time I did this was in December, this presentation. So there's the sea salt, the moonlight, herbs. I actually have a spray downstairs. I think I have one bottle left, and then I have a test bottle that you can smell and see. It has gemstones in it, but also has the different sage herbs, and it has like a menthol smell to it. A lot of people think it's a really heavy menthol, but it dissipates really quickly, actually. And we use that quite a bit in home cleansings and also just in gemstone cleansing. Bury them in the dirt. You want your point down. You can put them in a little bit of dirt. If you break a pendulum or break a gemstone, and this I was kind of joking with a friend, and I said, I broke my fluorite, pendulum. She's like, bury it now, roll on it, burn it, burn the ground over it. The idea of that is you're casting it back. Howlite, fake turquoise, or dyed howlite. It can be red, greens, purples. Natural howlite is this white color, and then this is what it looks like dyed. But it's also good calming. I do have it in quite a few of my bracelets downstairs, only because I was in Latin America, and the little Day of the Dead beads are all howlite, and I thought they were really cool, so I picked up a bunch of them. So if you look at my jewelry downstairs, some of it does have that. Jet is actually kind of like a coal. True jet is very, very hard to find. It's actually it's like coal and petrified wood. It's a carbonated stone. Very difficult to find, very expensive. In a jewelry, like a giant fabrics or whatever, they'll label something jet, and it's not real jet. They'll just label it that because it's jet black. So you gotta be careful with that. But it's also really good protection. Labradorite. I wish you could see how pretty it is. You can kind of see it's a very opalescent stone. It's gray with blues and pinks and different things. It's actually one of the most expensive stones out there also. I did splurge and got some downstairs because I really wanted it for myself also. But it's also a really good stone for, wearing when you're out in the field. And they also do use it for scrying, just like the fluorite. The lapis. This is also the stone that they used in Egypt. It's a good protection stone. And I would probably also avoid some lapis from your pets because some of it has copper, depending on where it's mined. Oh, it's poisonous to pets. It's poisonous to anybody. Nobody wants to really, you don't want to chew on copper. Exactly what it does, I'm not entirely certain. I know there's some people who specialize in only pet gemstones, and that's where I originally heard it. But I've also done some research with pet healing. Moonstone, that's a very translucent stone. You can see rutilations in it, kind of little lines. It's a good protection stone. Petrified wood. I do have some downstairs. It's very hard to find legally because it's usually stolen. Mine's actually from one of the parks out west. I had specially ordered it because as a child I used to get it from a lot of the parks out west, and I was able to call and ask them to send me some. Red jasper, that is probably the most prominent protection stone that is used out there for men and ladies. It's the one most in your grids. Rose quartz. Ruby. Ruby is a very nice stone, but you can't find it tumbled very easily. But it's quite a bit of jewelry because it's small, but not really a large stone like that. But you can. Here's quartz with rutilation. With quartz being an amplifier, you can get quartz rutilated with black tourmaline, and that's what that is. You can also get it rutilated with gold. Selenite. If you're cleansing your home, which before you cleanse, you always want to get rid of whatever you have before you cleanse. Smoky quartz. It's a good protection stone, and I have a lot of people who were in like AA and things like that. This is like their go-to stone. I don't know entirely why. Whoever runs these AA classes, they say this is their stone.
So ran through the rose quartz so quickly.
I'm sorry.
To see what did that have a special other than just regular quartz?
Rose quartz. Rose quartz, it's like a love quartz. It's a calming quartz, and it's used. It's another protection, calming, love. It's a lot of times used in grids that, if somebody wants kind of more of a relaxation and compassion in their home. And actually, I have a picture of a grid that will have that in there. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, stop me if you guys have questions. Did you get your stones back?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I was trying to watch. Snowflake obsidian. This is one that I use quite a bit, especially with children or with people who have nightmares, actually. It's used for protection, and even they consider it for telepathic protection, I guess, to a degree. Like if you're sleeping or things like that, they'll put it under pillows, mattresses, different things like that, especially with kids who are having issues with energy in their sleep. But it's a great protection one. Sodalite, it's another blue stone, another calming stone. It's kind of, they say it's your throat chakra, so it kind of opens up communication and peace. Unakite, this is melon unakite in this photo right here. It's melon because it also has the pink in it. Some pieces you see have a lot less pink. And it's also a protection stone, but also communication and kind of encouragement. Salt, you want to use sea salt, not kosher salt. I've had people try to do that before. Some giant eagles, or if you're from where I'm from, up in northern Ohio, we have giant eagles that now have huge salt bins. That's like $30. So you can get it online a lot cheaper. People even, once they've cleansed their home, they'll put it around the perimeter of the inside of the house, the inside of the rooms, to kind of seal the rooms. Gemstone pouch, so this is one way, instead of wearing in terms of like jewelry or anything like that. For children, it's a good way. Guidelines for protecting yourself and for your home. If you do paranormal investigations, or if you're doing anything like that in your home, communicating with spirits or communicating with family that you think, you always want to do kind of like opening and closing prayer, or you can call it like a charge. One of the big ones is you want to say, you may be earthbound, but don't follow me. You don't want it to follow you, don't want it to go with you, especially if you're in a home. You say, look, you're here. If you don't want to cross over, or for whatever reason, especially a lot of times if you go paranormal investigating or into these places, they will not want you to cross over their spirits. They'll tell you don't cross them over. We don't want to find you crossing them over. So you want, like Mansfield Reformatory, or there's a Snowball Library, I think, here in Columbus or something like that. So you want to, when you get there, say, I do a lot of meditating, so we'll sit down and just kind of meditate for a minute and just kind of ground yourself and, protect yourself. And then when we leave, we say, thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for...
Did you say that some places don't want you to cross them over?
Absolutely, yeah.
Why?
Because that's their moneymaker.
That's exploiting.
Yes, go ahead.
And also, let's say that an energy does follow you home and you do something to set a boundary and have it leave.
Yes.
Does it go back to where it came from, or just roam around, like anybody on the street?
That's a good question. It kind of just depends on that energy.
And I say that because I had gone into this consignment store and I had some weird experiences afterwards. And I'm afraid to go back to that consignment store because I feel like, oh, it's a bad experience. So I don't know if whatever bothered me. No, it sounds a little, but whatever bothered me, if it went back there. I mean,
you never know, and it could, it may have. It's hard to tell. That's the thing. If I don't do a whole lot of secondhand shopping for that reason, because a lot of times you just don't. People died, and that's their stuff from when they passed. So for me, that's kind of more of an eerie feeling. I don't want to take necessarily their energy with them because for whatever reason, somebody didn't want their stuff after they died. So who knows what type of person they may have been. But I mean, really just grounding yourself and kind of, being aware of yourself a lot of times is really, it's like walking into these shows, it's like walking into anywhere, really. Not practicing in your sacred space or your home. A lot of times, paranormal people or ghost people or anybody, they'll take what's called a spirit box. And it's a FM or AM radio that you can put on a certain frequency, and you can talk to spirits and get communication through this box. If you've ever watched it on TV, they call it an SB7 box. Don't use them in your home. And anytime you do use them outside of your home, you of course want to open and close because I've seen people get some pretty nasty things come through. As a matter of fact, my stepson was playing with one, and he comes in the house and he's got bloody scratches up and down him. I'm like, what were you doing? He had the spirit box. He took it into the backyard and didn't tell us. And he didn't even realize, he said that a little girl, he actually recorded it. I've got some EVPs from it. A little girl kept saying blood, blood. And here he had bloodied himself. And he was just sitting kind of out in the middle of the backyard, So I don't recommend using them in your home. If you feel like you have a spirit in your home, a lot of times people are like, well, what do I do if I have a spirit in my home? That's the big question. What do I do? Well, it depends on what you want to do with it and what it's doing to you. One of my best friends says her grandmother always visits her. She can smell her perfume or smell, things related to her grandma, and she's terrified of it. And I said, well, what do you want to do? I said, this is your grandmother, and she's obviously she's like your spirit guide. And she's trying to watch out for you. And she's a very strict Catholic gal. And she's like, I don't want her there. She's got to go. And I'm like, well, you need to tell her that, for one. I said, you have to understand why she's there. She's obviously, she has a 12-year-old and a 2-year-old. She's bothering the children. They're waking up screaming. They feel like they're being touched. And so we went down and I sat down with her and said, look, you've got to help her cross over. So we did a crossover and then cleansed the house, and they haven't been bothered since, thankfully. But so it's you have to decide what you want with the spirits in your home. Not taking children ghost hunting. This is a really big one for me because when I go up, a lot of times if I take friends or a team, they want their 12-year-olds or 8-year-olds to go. The only time I run what's called the Ohio Paranormal Gathering, I founded that. It's a network of groups, and if you follow my website, we'll have messages. It's literally just groups that come together with speakers. It's kind of like a mini convention, but isn't a convention. People want to bring their kids. And even though we're not going ghost hunting, it's still a very serious topic. I know they can watch it on TV, they can understand it on TV, but then they go experiment. So I kind of generally say, education is your big thing with your children. You want to educate them about it, but avoid the TV shows. Don't take them. You can, I mean, there's daytime tours that I see a lot of people take their children on. I've taken my 16-year-old stepson on events, but he also very much so understands it. He falls asleep when we go sometimes, you know, if he's there. But he's also very educated into it. But young children, you think your child's psychic or anything like that, I generally say, give them more protective aura and education, and just let them decide later on in life. Provoking, if you've seen on television, Zach Baggins and all of them, they're just like, they provoke the heck out of it. But in reality, I've actually met them at several events. In reality, like Aaron and his sister and I are good friends. She's an artist, and I've worked with her several times. They have like 20 some odd hours of tape that they cram into an hour. So they're showing you the worst of the worst. But that's generally something when you go into a space, you want to respect it. So you don't want to provoke it. Go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're okay.
So how do they protect themselves? I mean, it almost seems like they do so much. Like, are they, like, I think about the series Ghost Hunters, and the one founder left, and I wonder, did they leave for a reason?
Jason left? Was it Jason?
No, not
the other
Jason,
one,
the other guy.
The other one.
What was his name?
I don't remember. I've only caught some of it.
Dark-haired guy, but, you know, they seem to be so committed to it regularly, and then all of a sudden he's gone, and I had to wonder, did something happen?
Not Brian Harnar. Not Brian.
If I can interject something, what she just said, it's my understanding that Zach Bagans did have a possession.
He had an attachment.
And that is something that they don't really put out there on the television about what can happen to people.
Yeah, he had an attachment, and they're actually saying right now, he just bought a house up in like Minnesota or Montana, that they're saying maybe he has another attachment that's telling him to buy this house that is absolutely, I mean, this house, they have recordings of like people being lifted into the air and just really creepy demonic type stuff. If I know of anything demonic, I don't even go near it myself. There's people out there who handle that a lot better than I would.
I mean, he seems kind of afraid, but also intrigued, you know? That
Yes.
intrigue can get you in trouble.
I agree, and that's probably being a skeptic, you always want to research and understand the most. That's how I am. I'm honestly not afraid to go in by myself, but I also know what I'm getting myself into, what can happen to me. I generally make sure I have somebody around the corner or whatever, you know, if we do work by ourselves. And usually the best thing is if you are going to do something like that, only do it in like 2.5-minute sections. You don't want to do it for very long periods of time, unlike how they'll get in the coolers and all that. That just, but I mean, they do quite a bit of provoking, and they do quite a bit of, you know, they do get quite a bit of negative related things because of it. They've been possessed on site. You know, you can see like the energy bouncing off their heads or different things. But yeah, he has had an attachment. So.
Did you give examples of the opening and closing kind of prayer? Like what? Is the
That's a very personal thing. I did have them in here on a slide, and I actually took them out yesterday, only because the St. Michael's prayer is one of them. But then I have people say, "But I'm not Catholic. I'm not praying to a saint." Everybody does it kind of differently. Like I was raised Methodist, and so my prayer is a very general prayer. I don't pray to saints, obviously. You know, I just kind of like make sure it's more like a charge. You know, kind of like you're saying, don't follow me home, you know, protect me, guide me, you know, and, you know, come more like a protection. But there is several forms, and you can Google them and kind of make your own decision what your preference is for them. But that's kind of I had them in here, and I took them out because the reaction I was getting was, but I'm not Catholic, but I'm not this, I'm not that. They're it's more of a personal preference. Okay, so grids. This is what a ultra style grid looks like. You have your positive affirmation, which is kind of thinking what you want to happen. Whether it's protect my home, protect my children, protect, you know, whatever it is. And then this is what they call the activator crystal wand. So it's basically a quartz stick like that. And then your intention is also kind of more what you're actually gridding for.
you make this? Is this a thing that you lay out, or
Yeah, you can lay this out. You can do it very simply also.
that I have animals in the house?
I would put this
cats,
up, yeah, I
So what
put
do you do with it?
like on a nightstand.
The cats would have the stones all over.
See, I never owned a cat. My mom was allergic, so I don't know cat habit very well. I guess somewhere where they didn't get to it. Or put a cake thing over
A
it.
cake thing. That's a good idea.
I've seen people do that from other pets before. Put like a cake, one of them cake
Yeah.
orbs, I guess I would call it. That's the only thing I can think of.
So how do you lay your stones out then?
How you would lay your stone out is you'd have your main stone, and then these, you see how they're pointed in a certain direction. It's kind of like there's a lot of different ways to do it. This is angelite and rose quartz, and this looks like amethyst, and I believe that's a main quartz for the main stone, and then a quartz for the wand. And they're going for, this particular one is going for protection with the amethyst. Here's also an amethyst wand radiating out into the angelite, which angelite, it's a calming stone, but also kind of calls upon angels. It's a communication. And then your rose quartz is love. There's a lot of ways you can lay out different
Do
grids.
you ever switch up the design? Is it
Absolutely.
just-
Here, I'll show you
Okay.
one, the next one. This is, come on. This is, this was not mine. This was an example. This is an example that somebody sent me. This is what they considered like a love grid. So this is your quartz, which is your amplifier, your rose quartz. Your main is the rose quartz because it's very love related. And then they also put in rabbit for fertility. And then these are just kind of like little trinkets that mean something to them in it. So see this rabbit for that. And so, okay, so yes, we have the quartz points in that. Any questions on this one before I flip it? This is protection for your home. This is what it looks. Oops, sorry. This is what it looks like when you're working on gridding your own personal home. You're going to use selenite, and then your corners are going to be tourmaline or whatever protective
On the outside of the home then?
inside. But you can also do this on the outside. A lot of times people will put quartz on the outside or different things. They'll bury like quartz in four corners. I have a friend who did aventurine because they wanted like luck. I don't know if I necessarily buy into luck with stones myself because I just feel that I'm more skeptical with that.
What do you
But-
do if you live in a condo and you can't do, you know what I'm saying? Like you're attached to other people. How do you do the inside?
Then I would probably do outside and just not tell them.
Oh,
That's what I would do. I
go
mean,
around and pound the stones in people's,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
That or salt also. We were having some really weird activity at my family's Christmas tree farm. And I literally took like a huge bag of salt. Like one of my friends, he's a demonologist, and I was explaining to him, I said, it's just really random activity. He's like, well, cleanse it and salt it. Put salt everywhere. I got 75 acres. So I went around 4 houses and salted around each house. And then I just left the natural habitat as natural habitat. But it did work. The activity in the homes has died down. So what this is your selenite. You can also use the cubes and put it up on top of the door jamb. You're asking like in the home. You can put it anywhere where you think
Well,
that would
what
help.
I was getting at is if you can't do the outside corners, because like you, when I lived out in the country, I went around the perimeter with salt
Yes.
and even tobacco.
Okay.
But now it would have to be more like the inside of the house, so,
Yeah, and you can do the inside just like this. This is actually for inside.
okay.
So you have you're going to put the black tourmaline in the corners, and then you place selenite along each wall. Let me turn this off completely. Then you have the black tourmaline, and then the selenite along each wall, and the corners and the doorways. And you want to make sure you cleanse your stones before you do this. Selenite is a natural cleanser. Tourmaline, you got to cleanse. And that's kind of it. I mean, do you have any? I kind of went over it with the stones. Does anybody have any questions on anything like this?
Can you use just selenite?
People have for just a cleanser, But so yes, the answer is yes. You can use just selenite. A lot of times people use these other stones, the other stones. You can even use rose quartz or whatever. It's kind of like the amplifier, I guess you would say.
Would you have to go around could you just like set them in a basket or something, or a jar inside the house and have it do the same thing?
Putting gemstones in the home, you can do that, but this is a grid. Doing that the other way is not a grid.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first grid you showed, that kind of a grid, that's more for a tabletop then?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And just having them along the floor is okay? You don't need,
You don't have to elevate them, no. You can put them, but if you have pets or whatever, you might not want to put them on the floor. Mine are on the floor in my home. My dogs don't bother them. This is what we consider a common household grid. It's usually the square pattern since the house being square. And it just kind of explains, and I can email these to anybody, it just kind of explains, why you're actually connecting it. Trying to make sure I stay within the time frame here. Yes, ma'am.
You know those like big rocks that are cut open and they show the internal quartz? The
Geodes.
amethyst or whatever. Geodes is what they're called. I mean, they're so pretty. Do you cleanse those? Like if you buy one of those, I mean, they're so big and.
You're speaking, so a geode that you would crack open and have like the quartz on the inside, that's quartz. So yes, you would want to cleanse that. Yeah, whether it's just, what I do with my stones at home, even the ones I sell downstairs, I take all my trays and put them out in the moonlight whenever there's a full moon. So, it's got about 3 to 5 minutes left. Is there any specific questions I can go back and touch on, or do you have any questions about anything else, possibly even paranormal related or anything like that? No?
Railroad tracks, is there anything related to railroad tracks? Do you live near them?
That's kind of like an urban myth. Railroad tracks, a lot of times people will believe that there might be some conducting because of electricity. Same thing with cell phone towers. That type of stuff, you're getting a lot of EMF due to the electric. So you might be getting more false reads, and some people themselves are sensitive to EMF waves and EMF energy. Same thing your microwave puts out.
Like if I have an open portal in my house, are they coming from the railroad tracks or just coming from the?
If it's a portal, no. It's a portal. They're coming from the other side.
Can you explain a little more about that? Like, why would there be a portal? Like, can we do something to inadvertently trigger that, or is it always
Ouija
like-
boards.
Okay, it's always like something like that.
Yes.
Or automatic writing, somebody comes into your house and does.
Mirrors.
Oh,
a
no,
lot
I
of times.
collect those.
Yeah.
Old mirrors are kind of scary.
Yes.
I have old mirrors.
I know.
What?
wait a minute, what is this about mirrors?
They can be considered portals.
But no, that's not always the case, is it?
Yeah, not always the case.
No,
No.
because I have a bunch of antique mirrors, and I've never had a problem, so.
Yeah,
The best thing to do, if you're starting to notice that you have energy in your home, make like a little checklist for yourself. Check and see what your ground is, what your quartz is, what your history is, what the history of your ground before the house and with the house is. And then you want to kind of just eliminate things from there. If your house had a lot of dust.
I smudge the mirrors, you know what
Okay,
I'm
then
saying?
that's-
I've
yes.
never had a problem with the
Yeah,
mirrors.
and that's a good thing to do.
Ever.
But I mean, in terms of portals, that's a really hard situation because you want to obviously close the portal, and a lot of times that's more along the lines of crossing the spirit's back, and kind of, but also finding out what's creating that portal. What?
so I could have something bad. Maybe
Oh yeah.
So far they're all good. I could still have something that's maybe bad.
You can't control what comes through. You can't.
If I just did lavender all in my house, to shut down, trying to close.
Oh yeah, sage. I would sage. Lavender. It's not used too often.
What
To
you
be
need
honest.
to do too is like, is it a certain spot that you're getting a feeling in? Is it a certain area in the house? That's what I had in my former kitchen, but what I did is I just stood over it and prayed the Lord's Prayer, prayed over it, and I said, this is open, but it's now shut, and you're not to, and I took control
Yeah,
over
you're
my
charging
home.
it.
That was my home. And that's what worked for me.
It's not my home, so I have a feeling since I'm a rental.
It's still your sacred space.
Okay, all right.
You know, it's still your home. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Person before you may have had a Ouija board. They sell Ouija boards and tarot cards in Toys R Us.
Oh.
Well, do you feel tarot cards are a problem? I mean, because
You're opening a portal with them. So, do I feel they're necessarily bad? It kind of depends on how you're using them. I personally don't use them. I know a lot of people do. I actually bought a set once because I thought the artwork on them was pretty, and I took them back. You know, because I was like, you know what, they creeped me out a little too much, even though they had a lot of Da Vinci paintings on them.
Yeah,
So.
I have that set. I just bought
Do
it.
you?
I haven't used it or
Yeah.
anything, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
sitting
well,
there. Oh my goodness.
I have a set, but I use it in sort of like a little porchy area where I just do for my own intuition. But I don't know. Maybe.
So you're not communicating with anything.
No,
You're
no.
using your own energy.
Yeah.
Same thing with a pendulum.
That was my question. That was, yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because I want you to clarify that,
Yeah.
please.
Well, with a pendulum, I actually got my first pendulum when I was 13 from my youth minister. And the idea behind it was literally a butterfly clip on a piece of twine. And the idea of it was behind you're using your inner energies and your inner morals to kind of have a tiebreaker. Because say you're having just a situation where you just need to know something about whatever. So that's kind of helps you rationalize it to have like a tiebreaker.
Is that different than water witching?
I don't know what water witching is. I heard you say that earlier, and I honestly have no idea.
The rods, the dowsing
Oh,
rods.
dowsing
where
rods.
they-
Okay,
they
dowsing
use-
rods are
I
very.
lived in the country, and that's actually where they find
I have dowsing rods
water.
downstairs.
They know where to drill.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much.
Thank
Good
you.
presentation. I want some more stones from you. Are you going to go?
Yeah, I'm going to head downstairs. I'm heading. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to come down.